One of the first things that I learned in the holistic medical world, not in the Western medical world, is that gut health is truly the foundation of all health, of all wellness. That is how important gut health is. It defines your metabolism, it defines your hormones, it defines your immune system, it defines your emotional state, it defines how strong you feel. It's literally everything.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Heal with Beth Jones. That's me, your host. My mission is to bring the power of healing to trauma and abuse survivors. That's why every guest on this show will bring you an amazing story of healing in action. So come on, everyone, let's heal.
Hi, I'd like to invite you to get your free copy of Empowered Survivors, the Healing Quick Start Guide. The guide includes an assessment to help you determine whether you're ready to do the deep transformational inner work that will set your heart free from any fear-based emotions that you're carrying and lead you to love-based living. Download your copy of the guide at empoweredsurvivors.com/heal. Welcome to today's episode. It's going to be another fun conversation today. I have with me my friend and someone who I've gotten to know over the last few months, Dr. Selvi. And Dr. Selvi, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our guests. Please tell them whatever it is that you would like them to know about you.
First of all, thanks for having me, Beth. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm delighted.
I'm Dr. Selvi Rengasami. I am a trained Western medical doctor turned holistic health coach, and I work specifically with women who have gut health issues, symptoms that are holding them back from their fullest potential, and walk through my own personal journey, which was what brought me there. So that's kind of like the professional side, but who I am as a person is so much deeper than that. As you and I know, we've connected on these deep levels. And I think my biggest mission, if you will, is to spread love and healing to the world.
Yes, which is my same mission, which is one of the reasons why our paths have crossed, which is beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is. Now, you were focusing on physical gut health. Your work, which we're going to delve into more deeply when we get a little bit later in the show, but just to set the stage for that now, your work and what you've learned through your work and through your own journey is that gut health, there's a whole lot more to the interplay of that in our overall well-being.
Oh my gosh, 100%. One of the first things that I learned in the holistic medical world, not in the Western medical world, is that gut health is truly the foundation of all health, of all wellness. That is how important gut health is. Like, we'll hear it thrown around here and there. Yeah, I got to work on my gut health. I've got some bloating, blah, blah, blah. It also it defines your metabolism, it defines your hormones, it defines your immune system, it defines your emotional state, it defines how strong you feel. And so it's literally everything. And it's the thing that rocked my world. I had to understand and was forced to understand just how important it was. Like, I remember hearing that and feeling that nugget, gut health is the foundation of all health. And I was like, oh boy, this is a problem because I currently have inflammation in my gut and I have all of these symptoms and I feel weak and I feel vulnerable and I feel scared and I feel all of these things, which is not how I'm supposed to feel. Like, my intuition told me that loud and clear. As I started to progress in my journey, I started to see, as that foundation became stronger and stronger, how I became stronger, not just physically, it started physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that journey still continues, but it's so deep and it's so layered. And that part of what I love about it is that it is so deep and layered.
Yeah. Which is great about who we are and the healing journey, what you learn about those deep layers of yourself. I'm laughing a little bit because I'm like, oh, Deborah, what am I about to learn about my gut health that I need to learn? So we're recording because I like to have a variety of different practitioners who are focused on healing on the show, people who have their own journey. You definitely fit into that space. we're in the same heart-centered service of people. So you're a natural guest for the show, but I'm like, oh, am I going to get a message here? Is there something coming specifically for me that I need to hear? So we'll see. Maybe that's going to happen, but we'll see. You used the words rocked my world. And as I have had my own experiences and I talk to people who step onto a true healing pathway, really taking control of the suffering in their life, and we'll just put it into that broad category, that's quite typical. And I've heard it described in a variety of different ways. Rock bottom is the way we hear it described. Mine was a wrecking ball crashing into this massive wall that I lived around, and literally waking up and being, oh, wow, that's what that is. But that sort of that pivot point, that moment when we're like, I can't live this way anymore, and I have to do something to change my life. And so will you talk a little bit more about what that rock my world point was for you? What happened?
Yeah. So I had been diagnosed with Crohn's disease in college, and I spent probably, I guess, around 10 years, let's say, dealing with the Western medical system, medications, side effects, never really getting better. They kept talking about this promised land of remission where you'd feel better at that point, and I could never even seem to get close, let alone approach it. And I wound up needing not just one surgery, but multiple surgeries. And I kept going back. And I wound up on the operating table for, I counted, the seventh time
Oh my.
for abdominal surgery. That
Oh.
was what it took for me to say, oh no, oh no, this
Hmm.
is not living. This is ridiculous. I wound up, I still remember, like it's burned into my memory, laying on that operating table, the IV in my arm, and the lights overhead, right? They're about to push the IV, the anesthesia into the IV. And I just had this breaking point internally of, I will not live this way anymore. I will do anything it takes to heal.
I know
Anything.
that feeling for a
Yeah,
very different reason, but I know that feeling.
right. I had become so desperate, and I knew, I always knew there had to be a way to heal.
Hmm.
I just didn't know what or how or where to find it. But I always knew it existed. To rewind for a second, like my first surgery, my first major surgery, I was spared from death. And that actually happened twice. And I always knew I was spared for a reason. And it wasn't to continue suffering for the rest of my life. That much was clear. So I
Hmm.
knew there was a path. So then I went under the anesthesia, that seventh surgery, had the surgery, was recovering, and don't that's when the path starts to be revealed. When I
Yeah.
drew my line in the sand, I made that vow to myself. I said, no more. I am not available for that reality anymore, period. That's when everything started to change.
So I have so many questions for you, but the first one is just a quick yes or no answer to this question. Are you taking medication now?
No,
No. That's amazing.
that was
Amazing.
impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, there because you're so interesting to me and what you do. And just I get fascinated with the body and just how our bodies work. And I am fascinated right now and have been for a while with the brain and how the brain responds to trauma and different
Mm,
ages. I just and if I could go back knowing what I know now, and of course this is not it's not my path and not what my purpose was meant to be in this lifetime, but if I could come back, I could say, hey God, I'd like to do this, being someone who was in the place of actually being able to study that, like how does the brain work when we're dealing with trauma and abuse and just child adversity and types of
sure.
things. So I'm fascinated by what you know to be true and what you've discovered about gut health and how it plays into our overall well-being. And not only what I think is so interesting about you is that you have the Western training, but also really experiencing and living in the holistic application of how we can heal ourselves, because the body is it's phenomenal, right? And I know from my own experience, having done the work to heal myself and get to where I am, it's emotional healing for me, but getting to this place is because my body and my brain are amazing and have an amazing capacity to do that. And it's true about every part of our body, right? And
Yeah.
just focus on the gut. Yeah. Yeah, so 7 surgeries, that's and 2 near-death experiences, that's pretty heavy in and of itself. So
Mm.
surgery number 7 is the turning point. I'm not living this way anymore. Very common when we get on that journey. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about your pre-healing journey and anything that you discovered that you experienced that was living in your body and maybe part of how your gut was responding?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. It would take me years to discover,
Yes.
years later to discover that there was this whole wellspring of trauma underneath
Mm,
that my body was trying to cover through symptoms. I
mm,
had such deep grief that was never processed. I'd had intense fear, like from childhood, some
mm,
that I can't even speak to necessarily an incident that created something. Some might have just been innate, like I might have absorbed from my mother, for example, in the womb. There's all of these things,
yes.
right? Anger. Never thought I had a right to process anger. All of this was stuffed down. It had to go somewhere. And so, of course, my my gut was screaming. I was constantly in pain. I had heartburn, anger, right? My gallbladder had stones. They took my gallbladder out, and my liver was angry, right? So all of these layers later on started to make sense. I didn't think I had emotions. I thought I was fine. I was suppressing like a champion.
Into your gut.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We
Meanwhile, my
can stuff
body's
better than I can stuff.
meanwhile, my body's that's cute. How's that working for you?
That's so funny. Yeah. So have you had an opportunity now to explore and work through some of the other traumas that were there, or do you, and maybe it's both, you have done that, but are you also in a place where you're just okay knowing that whatever has been there in the past, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you know how to manage the fact that it's sitting in your body? So where are you with that whole spectrum of what you know and what you don't know?
Yeah. It's interesting because when I first started on a healing path, there was so much deconditioning that my mind had to undergo. Medical brain wants to know everything about everything. How do you go from that place to acceptance, to surrender? Whew. The work I was doing initially to calm my mind down, to be like, there's not always an answer to everything. So some of it is acceptance, yes. And there is also this, I would say, more than needing answers, curiosity that is
Mm,
present these days, where it's just if something does arise, if an emotion does arise, sometimes there is something attached to it. And then it's, huh, what is that about? Where is that from? So that if it presents itself, that curiosity is certainly there. And there are times where it doesn't. I am someone who can also, for example, like tap into the emotions of the collective. And there are times where I'll
mhm,
be processing that, right? That being said, I have uncovered and unpacked and worked through a lot of the trauma, like not just from childhood, but I think I started mostly with the medical trauma at first.
yeah.
Like I hadn't realized how traumatic it was for my body to go through what it went through for all of those years. So
Mm, mm,
poking,
yeah.
prodding,
Oh,
cutting,
yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
being strapped into on a table when I didn't want to. It was just that first surgery. I was looking to graduate from undergrad, and it was an emergency surgery. I had no choice. My soul, my body wanted to run, and I realized I couldn't. So a lot of freeze was underneath there.
Yeah.
And so part of this metabolism work and approaching it is also, I'm currently training with somatic experiencing. You're familiar with them. So they're an incredible training model. It works with nervous system regulation,
Mm,
works the body in the nervous system. And that's been lately, the past year and a half, I'd say a beautiful tool for me to not go after what's there, but just be with whatever arises and allow it to metabolize itself as and when it's ready, which has been beautiful and has allowed me to develop this deeper appreciation for what my body has held.
yeah.
And what is still in there, and how much more safety can I start to create for it to unravel whatever it wants to, leaving my agenda out of it, if that makes
Yeah, so beautiful. Yes.
sense.
Yes, so beautiful. Or as I like to say, when we're ready. And I think that's God leading us to the place that we're ready, not the humanness in us that needs to do whatever we do to get in the way of our own healing pathway in the journey and how it's supposed to unfold.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned experiences that might have been with you being in your mother's womb. It's interesting. I'm actually reading right now or listening. I'm actually listening to it on an audiobook. I don't have it with me, but it's Oprah's book, What Happened to You. And like literally, I'm in chapter 5, and I was listening to it this morning, which is about the like genetic imprinting, right? Or what we're carrying with us from the collective energy being part of a particular societal group. One of the examples they were given was being part of being African American in the US and going through slavery and civil rights and all of that, right? And how that just can get genetically coded into us. And then, of course, we're talking about the family unit. And that is my experience because I'm a curse breaker in my family. And so I know that I carry in me, and part of my trauma that I have dealt with and have had to process is that stuff that I didn't even experience, but I'm down the line of carrying it. So it's interesting that you actually mentioned that this morning. So you've had, I take it, similar experiences where you know that, because I always say like the trauma is not mine anyhow. And I've learned that from healing. Anything that anybody did directly to me, what they did is theirs, not mine. I'm just truly the victim in the moment and the survivor of it. And I've had to obviously do all the healing to get to that place to understand it's not mine. But what I'm talking about here and asking about here is stuff that's really not ours because it's not even immediately tied to us. So you have had similar experiences and discovered that for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think part of it probably opened up with some of that curiosity of just what is this? Where did
Mm,
this come from? Like, for example, that example of fear. I remember always being scared.
yeah.
And it was just like, what the heck? My brother would, he would do, he's 11 years older than me, right?
Mm,
And he would hide like behind the bathroom door, let's say, and I would flip on the light and he would jump out and be like, "Blah," but a little louder than that. And I would scream bloody murder every single time. Like, even when I knew it was going to happen, I was just super jumpy. And I was like, so years later, I'm like, where did that ever come from? Like, did I just never feel safe? What was that? And my mother, having been in, for her, a foreign country, she was here for maybe 4 years, was mostly fending for herself. Like, my dad was around, but he was working a lot, so he wasn't really present, not in the day in, day out kind of sense. And she's another stuffer, like, she really stuffs things down. So that, and then eventually, as I started opening wider and wider into the world of healing and what's out there and all of this, then I started to understand that there's this whole ancestral component. And I was like, what? So it started to make sense, right? Where I'm like,
mhm.
I grew up okay. Like, what is this like deep-seated scarcity, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like grandmothers I had who went to bed hungry, didn't have
Mhm,
enough food to eat, right? It's
mhm.
like that, would worry about every little like scrap of an onion, like when they were cooking, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And so there would be times where I was like, that's not even mine, actually, or this is not even mine. Like, again, like you talk about anger, but there's a difference between anger and rage. And all of the
Yes.
women in my line who never had permission to process their anger, it has to go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Stuffing.
back to the
That
stuffing.
gets nasty when it's inside of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there was something very liberating about that to be like,
Mm.
okay, this actually isn't mine. And it's that, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but it's a blessing and the curse of being the chain breaker in the line.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it caused me ultimately to develop this deep reverence for where I came from, but it's been a long journey to get there. There was certainly like a lot of like, why me? Why was I chosen? Couldn't have been someone else. Come on.
I mean, you're the words you use are there is that because we've talked before, and it's always astounded me how similar the way that you describe your experiences has
Yeah.
been to mine because I use that word a lot as well, reverence. And it was one of the things that will bring me to a deep emotional state. I'm going to see if I can get this out without getting into that emotional state. But I'm so humbled, and I have so much reverence for the path that God has given to me and the work that I'm here to do,
Mm.
that God would see fit to give me the gift that I have been given. Right, I have immense. I mean, I can't stop the emotion. I'm deeply humbled by that and have so much reverence for it. I also literally, that is my fear of God, is that I'm not going to do what God wants me to do with my work and with my story and with my mission. So
Mm.
I know that feeling, right? I think that's where the blessing is being given the gift. The curse is the crap we've dealt with to get to this point. It is, I always talk about it. Last one of the ironies, one of the greatest, probably the greatest irony of my life is that I was born to be the healing mentor. Okay, that
Mm.
means that I had to suffer for 50 years before I could step onto my healing journey to awaken and become the healing mentor, which is, I think, is similar to your experience. And so that's the pain and the beauty of it all wrapped up in one.
100%.
Reverence, you use that word. That's so great. Yeah. Okay, I have another yes or no question for you. Do you see any Western medical doctors currently?
No.
Okay. I'm just gonna throw these little ones out there. I'm just
Yeah, for sure. No, I
curious. So that was the answer I expected, but I was curious. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. The healing journey then, right? So you're into the seventh surgery, not doing this anymore. Tell us what happened that moved you down the path of taking control, really. And that's what healing is about, is taking control of it for yourself and figuring your own way through it and doing the work to figure it out for yourself. So tell us what that looked like for you.
Yeah, I was recovering from the surgery. I was at my parents' house and I had the lazy boy recliner chair that I would always sit on, super comfy. And so I was sitting on the chair, had my laptop on my lap, and by this point, I was a food blogger. So I love to
Hmm.
post recipes, I love to cook. And I had this whole network of blogger friends online. So I was scrolling through updates and I found this one blog entry that caught my eye. It wasn't actually a recipe, it was about a story about this couple who was writing the blog, their cat. And I was like, okay. So they're writing about their cat's arthritis journey. And I'm like, okay, arthritis, inflammation, Crohn's disease, inflammation. Interesting. And they were saying they took their cat who was struggling to walk, in pain, cranky, overweight, right? All the classic signs of inflammation happening in this cat. They took the cat to the vet. The first thing the vet asked is, what is your cat eating? And they told the vet, and the vet, that's not what a cat's supposed to eat. Change the cat's diet. Let me know how they do in a couple weeks. Within a couple weeks, they had a different cat. The cat lost weight, better mood, more energy, who started moving, and then light bulbs went off for them. And they were like, whoa, our athletic performance is actually not as great as we'd like it to be. We are lacking on energy. We're having some symptoms. What if we changed our diets? So they're continuing the story. They went from eating vegan to eating paleo. And so that's lots of protein, healthy fats, vegetables. And within a couple of weeks, they noticed a huge improvement in their athletic performance, in their energy, in their joint pain, etc. And for me, like 15 light bulbs started going off, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
All of these years, my doctors had been telling me diet doesn't play a role. What if it does? I decided to change
You
my
really had doctors telling you that?
girl. They still tell some of my prospective clients that. Like, we'll be
Wow, that is shocking to me.
insane. And
Oh my goodness.
to this day, I hear it, and my response is usually, hold for a minute while I go bang my head against the wall. That's
Yeah.
my reaction. They're still saying this? Really?
Yeah.
My goodness. And I believed it, right, for the longest time. But then I decided, no, okay, wait, maybe there's something that I can do. And I decided to do something to me at that point in time that felt revolutionary. I went gluten-free, which is so ubiquitous in this day and age, right? But at that point, I was like, oh my God, I have to give up bread and pasta and all. But what if I gave up 21 days of my life and saw what happened
Yeah.
compared to 10 plus years of suffering in the greater scheme of things?
Mm.
Within less than a week, I had less bloating, I had less pain, I had more energy. I
Yeah.
knew I was onto something. I started down the rabbit hole and I was like, okay, what other dietary changes can I make? I found acupuncture, and that was my initial education foray into holistic health and
Mm,
the interplay of the mind, the body, the spirit,
mm,
emotions, how this can manifest in physical symptoms. And I was like, my goodness gracious, here's a school of thought that looks at the human as a whole and everything works together. And this makes so much sense.
yeah.
It's not like in medical school where it's just you have the cardiologist for the circulatory system and you have the pulmonologist for the respiratory system and you have this specialist for that system and then you have a complex patient and they all come into the hospital room and they're all fighting over what to do.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because we don't want to disparage Western medicine, and that's the reality of how doctors get trained and where the focus is. And I think that's part of the system that we're in, right? And that's what you do. You pick a specialization and you go into that specialization. But I think the underlying reason for that is exactly what you said. The body is complex. And the only person or the only entity that I think actually knows how the body really functions at all levels, all systems, deep, granular levels, God. And there's no God on this earth. So it's like doing the best that we can. And I think there is place for Western medicine when you do know you have a system that, you really need to focus on. I think the work that you do is really almost, and you can tell me whether you agree with this or not, but the work you do is almost like preventative, right? Keeping us from getting to that place, taking control of our own body, our own health, and keeping us from getting into that place where we have a particular system that goes offline, that now we have to have some sort of non-natural, non-holistic intervention to help us deal with it.
Yes and no, to your
Mm,
point. Yes and
mm,
no. Because honestly, a lot of the women who come to seek me out are quite sick. And they're oftentimes being faced with either having to go on a medication or a higher dose of a medication.
mm.
I had a client who was actually being told that she might need surgery, and obviously she didn't want to have surgery, which I totally get. So it's like preventative, but also like they're in it.
Yeah, already in it. It's like a reset almost.
Yeah.
Let's start eliminating the things that are causing you to be whatever the system is to be offline,
Mhm.
right? Which is what you were talking about with the gluten, which I've had the same experience, which is why I had what are you going to tell me? What am I supposed to hear on this about gut health? Because I've had similar experience, which I did it for, mine was just about overall, I guess it was about, I believe in natural aging, right? And the sort of natural anti-aging. But I do think there are things that we can do to slow the process, right? Or help us to not be reacting the more difficult and challenging side effects of aging, to be able to combat those and offset them a little bit. And I do believe personally that diet is a huge factor in that. And then I've learned just there's a lot of studies out there. Take red dye, for example, and yellow dye, and how terrible that is for everything in the body. And so this was actually a number of years ago. I just started getting into this around the aspects of diet. And I actually believe, and I know for a fact, studying myself, that my physical health, 80% of it for me is diet, and only about 20% is physical activity to keep myself in good shape and peak performance. And I do some other things around my energy level beyond food. So I also engage in a chiropractic specialization that focuses on the nervous system, and it's all about keeping the energy flow along the spinal column moving. So if you've heard of it's called network spinals, which focuses on
I was just about to ask, you're talking about spinal,
yeah,
aren't you?
so I do, and I've had phenomenal
Oh,
results with
oh,
it. Right? Phenomenal, really great results. So I've been doing this for a long time, but when I first got into it, the very first thing that I did is I went to my pantry and I started looking at the labels on the stuff in my pantry, and I bet I threw away probably 85% of it because I was like, it was like some kind of a science experiment that I couldn't pronounce the words. It was apple. I threw it away. And then there are others that over time you figure out are not great either, even though you can actually say the word and you have some idea what it is, that aren't so great either. So if it's not fresh, then I'm a label person, right? And I always, if it's got more than 4 or 5, a bag of chips that has more than 3 ingredients, I don't want it. And that's the stuff that I eat that I probably shouldn't. But if it's just got corn, some sort of oil, and a little bit of sea salt, I'll eat those chips. And that was just an active choice I made around the anti-aging. The gut health came into play for me because, and we're going to go a little TMI here, but which I was
No
what we do,
such
it's gut
thing.
health, right? So yes, it's that, right? And so I started noticing a lot of and like for like when I was eating clean like that, really clean, I was very consistent, right?
Yep.
Very regular, very consistent. I didn't have any, it was clean when it was coming through, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then as I started aging and started getting a little bit older, that started going out of balance again. And I was like, what is this? And I have brought it back around to gluten, right? And it was like a process of elimination. I'm just not going to eat bread, like white bread and pasta and stuff like that. And I know that's what it is. And when I eat it, it will cause me to go out of balance, and it will take me a little bit of time to get, and just like once, like one piece of bread, one biscuit, and I'm out of whack. Right? And that I think has been my system changing, and maybe that happens for us as the body does what it does as it ages and changes. But that was my first foray into the idea of gut health. I haven't had it to where it's been the level of impact that it was on you and perhaps some of your patients, where like it is where everything is sitting. And because I carried my trauma in other parts of my body, which I think we all do. But I've been trying to, there's something else that's, because I'm pretty strict on the gluten, putting gluten into my body. And I'm now having these same symptoms again. And I'm like, really? What is this now? So I'm like, what do I need to take out now? Because there must be something else that, or I'm not getting enough fiber. I've been reading a lot about fiber lately. So maybe it's that, is I've taken out too much and I don't know what it is. But anyhow, you tell me anything you would say to me I should go and take a look at.
I would take a look at food. It's also, for me, it's like scratching the surface. Like food
The
is
food.
yeah, it's part of it, but it's not the be all end all. People
Hmm.
often ask me, do I need to be on a strict elimination diet for the rest of my life? And I'm like, oh, hell no, not at
But you
all.
can't, but you can't tell that. That's the other thing that I've learned about food. You can't, like, there is no one size fits all. And that's why diets don't work, because it's a fad and it may or may not be the right diet for you and your body. And I learned that through researching this. And actually, the way that I learned this is when I was in this whole place of like really watching my diet, I was also running half marathons. And
Mm,
my ex-husband was my coach, and he had been a distance runner for years. He put himself through school as a cross country runner. And so he was like carb load, carb load, carb. And he and I have different body structures anyhow, which, is the first clue that we probably aren't going to be exactly the same. But he
yeah.
was giving me like the traditional, if you're going to go expend a bunch of energy, you need to carb load. As I'm training, I'm gaining weight, right? So I'm carb loading to go expend the energy, but the 6 months that I trained for my first half marathon, I probably gained 10 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
It's
Yeah,
very
that wasn't working.
wrong here. And I actually did a DNA test
Mhm,
genetically, like what my best food combination is.
mhm.
And that's where I learned that my body, I literally don't need any carbs, which makes it not surprising to me that my body is now rejecting gluten. I can
Mhm.
get all the carbs, all the energy that I need from vegetables. Not even fruit is not good.
Mm,
And that there's a diet, I'm genetically predisposed to diabetes on both sides of my family, which is
okay.
that I don't need that sugar in my body. So it's like everything about me starts to line up into what does my body actually need in terms of the food intake. I think you're right about that. There is a huge focus on food, but you can't, unless you actually spend time with somebody, study them and help them to study themselves, you really can't tell them what the right diet is, because there's so many factors that go into it.
Yeah. And for me, part of my gifting is that I'm a medical intuitive. So I have the intuitive ability to scan people's bodies. I will often receive messages about specific food recommendations to eat, to not eat for this particular person. I'm actually guiding a cleanse process right now, a 21-day cleanse, and we had a group call yesterday, and one of the women on the call was asking a question around mucus, and I was just
Hmm.
tuning into her system, and then I was able to just channel out a bunch of specific to her recommendations based on what her system was asking for. So that's part of my gifting and the ability to fine tune for someone with them. But yeah, because I am not a huge fan of testing typically.
Hmm.
I am more a proponent of let's let your body reveal the story of what's actually here.
which is my experience. That has been my experience, is listening to my body. I had to get a little help with the DNA testing, which is where I learned that about the diet for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even that's not necessarily 100% accurate, like not to throw water on the fire,
Yeah.
but it can certainly give guidance.
Mm.
I have also found that there are, of course, deeper layers, right? What emotions are being held there? How healthy is our microbiome, which is the balance of the bacteria, viruses, fungi that live in our gut. How optimal is that? Because when it's optimal, our weight starts to normalize. Our metabolism is normal, right? Our mood is optimal, all of this sort of stuff. And oftentimes, just depending on modern life, stress levels, et cetera, it can take a hit. And also, of course, depending on what we're eating. So, is there something that we need to tweak there? Maybe. I also like to play with things like cleansing, giving the body a break sometimes. I'm a proponent of fasting, like not all day, every day. It can be extremely therapeutic because our bodies were not meant to eat 3 times a day, 24/7,
So glad
365
you
days a
said
year.
that.
Like it blows my mind now.
So glad you said that. So my natural rhythm is an 18-hour fast. So
Yeah.
I eat at night, and I usually am finished eating by 6:30 or 7. And it is rare that I'll have anything more than my bulletproof coffee before noon or 1 the next day. Super
Mhm.
rare. And that is just and I'm not hungry. My
Yeah.
energy's great. I'm fine.
Yeah. And our bodies are able to adapt to different things, right? The issue oftentimes is when our minds get involved and try and control and think they know what's best for our body, as
Mm,
opposed to listening to our body, right? And that's a big part of
yeah.
what I guide people towards. How can we really slow you down so that you're able to hear those whispers from your body and listen to them and take action on them, as
Yeah.
opposed to running from here? I
Yeah.
know what's best for you. Trust me, that does not work.
No, it doesn't. But in defense of all of us who have done that, there's a lot out there, a lot of people out there telling us that they know best for us, right? And I think this is the work of, you're 100% right, the intuition to listen to your body and work what works for you. I just gave that my own example of the world telling me that if I'm running a half marathon, I need to carb load the night before I go and do that. And I gained 10 pounds in those 6 months. So that is my body saying, you don't need that.
Yeah.
You don't need that at all. You're fine over here. So that's natural for us to be
100%.
reacting to everything that the world is. And I'm just going to say this, and you don't have to say anything when I say this. In the world, there are a lot of big corporations that are built out there that are feeding that, whether it
Oh
is the
yeah.
food industry or it is the medical industry and pharma. It's feeding that for us, right?
Uh-huh.
And just keeping us in this cycle where we don't have the ability to figure it out for ourselves or listen to our bodies or our own intuition.
Yeah, or we believe we can't. We believe we don't know how to, right? Because there's so much that's coming at us constantly, 24/7. How are you able to then slow down? It's terrifying. Like,
Yeah.
foremost, it's terrifying. Secondly, if your gut health is not healthy, it's called your gut intuition. Like your intuition is not going to be as strong, right? So it's a catch-22. I know for me, especially in the beginning when I was starting to lean more into opening this channel, the intuitive channel up, I needed a practitioner to basically hold my hand to be like, yeah, you're not crazy. Yeah, that's actually okay. Yeah, you can trust yourself. What happens when you take action on that, right? To have that container, that safe space, it's like a toddler, right? Learning how to walk or something, being like, it's okay, sweetie, go ahead, do it, do it. It's okay. I've got you. I'm right here. Being a little facetious, but it's like that of, okay, I've got a safety net. Great.
Yeah.
I've got someone reflecting back to me, telling me I'm not nuts, that there is something to this. Maybe now I can start believing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of okay. I'm giving you like 15 analogies, but a bike with the training wheels, you need the training wheels for a little while until you don't, and then you get
Yeah.
the hang of it, and then it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm
Yeah,
good.
and I think that's probably true. And for you, coming from a Western medical background, you probably needed it even more,
100%. Because I
especially the you're not crazy part.
totally, I'm just like, I'm hearing voices. Is there something wrong with
There's absolutely not. It's interesting when you were just saying that, and because I told you, I'm aware that there's a message for me in this. I know, like my gut intuition. When we started, I was like, oh, what's coming here? So I'm going to have some specific questions for you around that here in just a minute. But one of my spiritual gifts is claircognizant, which is the inner knowing, right? And I do have times when I feel like it's stifled. And now I'm like, is there a correlation between, if I really pay attention to this, I bet I could document a correlation between when I've eaten something that I shouldn't have eaten and when my intuition just seems off, right? My inner knowing just seems off. And so I'm going to, it's like God saying, you need to pay attention to that at this moment. So I've also, clairaudience has been one of the things that I've been exploring now. By the way, I should just say for the audience, Lee and I have been in a masterclass together. This is where we met each other, where one of the exercises that we went through recently was around identifying and going through some exercises to help us hone our spiritual gifts, particularly around clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, or claircognizant. And we all had our beliefs about what our spiritual gift was, and through the process learned that we actually had others. So we have a mutual understanding and experience with that. So it's a little bit of background on what we're talking about right here. But I feel like right now I'm hearing, yes, you are right. You do need to pay attention to where what you're putting in your body is influencing your spiritual gifts. I want to say this too, because I like literally just heard this. Clairaudience, God speaking to me, reminded me of this, right? Earlier this year, I stopped drinking alcohol altogether, and it was in solidarity to my now fiance, but I just was like, I don't want it. I don't need it. And I've actually had some experiences recently serving at a party where, like, smelling wine that before I'd been like, oh, that smells delicious. I was like, oh, that does not smell good at all. So my body is, but I feel like that is, I know that coincides with one of the things that I was working on this year in 2025 is that I wanted to strengthen my connection to God and to remove the barriers, any kind of barrier between my ability to communicate directly with God and to receive God's intention, like my purpose, guide me on this path, right? I wanted to eliminate any barrier that would be there. And I've looked at it in a lot of different forms. And I'm now realizing that my decision in the beginning of the year to take alcohol out was part of that, helping me to clear that up. Plus, no matter what it might have been doing to my body physically as well. And not that I drank that much, but it's none now. And I just realized that literally I hear God saying to me, you realize that's why you don't do that, because it's helping with that knowing, that the claircognizant, the inner knowing, your gut instinct, what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So when women come to you, you have some women you mentioned who are really ill when they come to you. And when they come, are they like, I've tried everything, I need to go in a different direction? Yes.
90% of the time, yes.
And you're able to help them be able to move in a different direction. Really like full healing, like miracle working. I know we're not getting in that place, but there are a lot of components that go into this, but helping them to be able to at least eliminate some of the suffering and get down to the root of what's happening to them when they're really sick as an alternative to the Western medicine. That is what you're doing.
Yeah, and not necessarily medical miracle, but there is also, like, for me as a practitioner, to connect a woman back to her inner belief in herself, in her body, to start to reconnect and rebuild that relationship between her and her body. Because our bodies are our vehicle to everything, right? To creation, to manifestation, to the life that we want to live. And when you have gut health, when it's really strong, that foundation is strong. It's like you're building a house and the basement of the house is super strong. And now the house is going to last for however long, right? It's going to be solid. It's like that. When your gut is solid, like oftentimes people will come to me, I want to have less bloating, less pain, etc. I'm like, okay, cool. We can do that in a couple weeks. What else do you want? What do you want on top of that? What would be so freaking amazing that you've been too scared to say? What does that look like? Now let's see how we can start to create that together.
And that's not physical. When you're having that conversation with them, that's not about the physical.
It starts with the physical, but it opens into so much more, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's all tied together because when your gut is having symptoms, you have issues with boundaries, you have issues with self-worth, you have issues with feeling strong and feeling able to put out your desires, your creations, your what keeps you alive, like into the world. There's literally a block. So when we are able to quell the physical symptoms, now we're able to open more into the mindset stuff. We're able to open into the energetic layer. We're able to start processing some of those emotions, and then things start to open up. I'll give you a tangible example of this woman that I was working with, and she had no boundaries, right? And she didn't think it was a problem. I love taking care of my grandson all the time. My son calls me because my daughter-in-law works like these crazy hours. So I go there and I stay overnight and then I rush out of there and then I come home and then I go to work and I'm exhausted and I want to lose weight and my joints are achy and it's not a problem. Like that gives me joy. I'm like, okay, okay, cool. So we start working together. We get the symptoms better. And then like during our next to last or last call, we worked together for a few months. She tells me now her liver function numbers are normal. She had fatty liver. It was absolutely normal, best number of her life. Her pain was so much better. The thing that blew my mind more than even the physical stuff was she set a boundary. She had a son who lived with her and said, I'm not cooking for you anymore. You're a grown-ass man. You work for the police department. You can make your own food. The other son with the little baby, she was like, I'm available on XYZ days, but on weekends, that is my time, and I am going to spend that with my friends. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I was just like, who are you right now? What? It changed her.
Yeah, she
It-
figured it out for herself.
yeah. And we talked about it, but there was a lot of mental resistance. Once
Mhm.
her body started to come on board, it was like she opened up to
Yeah,
this whole
yeah,
other way of being, and it was organic. And that's what I love is that my clients always surprise me.
yeah, because they're just naturally releasing what they're holding inside of them as they bring the gut health back online. Why do you think it's the gut I could make a joke about it, and maybe that's the answer. Why do you think it's the gut that stores that and that causes that imbalance in the body?
That's a good question. The gut is very permeable, so it can absorb things. It is open to the entire world if you think about it. It's the only system that is open, your mouth all the way down to your bottom is open to the external world
Interesting. That's
fully,
true. Yeah.
right? If we're talking to someone, if we're open to their energy, how are we absorbing it?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, too, just depending on conditioning, how one was raised, that sort of thing. If you were, this is a very common story for women, unfortunately, right? If you were raised in a place where you had to be small or you had to dim your light, right? You had to pretend to be something you're not. That literally physically affects your gut. If we're
Mm.
talking about the chakras, the energy centers, that's a direct attack into the one that relates to your digestion, into the, good gosh, why am I blanking? Solar plexus, the solar.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a powerful part. The gut it has the potential to be extremely powerful, but it's also very sensitive. And
Yeah.
think about it, even just integrity-wise as an organ, it's not as thick as the liver, right? As
Mm-hmm.
strong as the heart in its ability to beat. And yet without it, like we can't absorb anything, we can't live either.
Yeah.
I think that plays some of it. And then the gut is also our second brain, which is interesting when you
What do
think
you
about
mean by that?
it. Meaning the majority of our serotonin is produced in the gut,
Mm.
which affects
Okay.
how our mood is, how happy we are, our outlook on the world. So if you're just like, the world sucks, I hate this, you're feeling even anxious or depressed on a chronic basis, I would first look at the gut. Even if you have no gut health symptoms, there is a correlation there. Now, if you're anxious or depressed or you have those symptoms, that's affecting everything that you're doing in your daily life. And the problem, chances are, is living in your gut, not necessarily in your brain.
Mm. Interesting.
Neurotransmitters are also, some of them are affected by your gut health, which is interesting too. So,
I love that. Thank you. I hope
welcome.
everybody out there listening heard that, right? Check your gut.
Yes.
So many reasons to check the guts. Yeah. And also that you said is powerful to me and really resonates the fact that it's the only system that's fully opened to the outside world. And that's true. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just interesting. The energy, how does the energy get into us? And then what do we take in that we're bringing in that is energy that we don't want in our body from all different sources?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Yes. Yeah. Cleanse came to mind when you said that because I've done that too before. I'm just taking a period of time doing different cleanses. I wasn't a fan of the juice cleanses. That was
I've actually never done a juice cleanse, believe it or not, because I'm like, that sounds
something
miserable.
I would recommend anybody. I'm a big fan of natural fasting, whatever your natural body rhythm is. I'm completely a big fan of that. And I know it works for me, but yeah. We're going to give you an opportunity here to let folks where they can find you in person, but also you work with people online. That's just the way we do it these days. So no matter where in the world they are that they want to connect with you, you are available. So we'll give you the opportunity to share that with our listeners and our viewers here in just a minute. But I can't help but ask you, like, what are you reading? What are you reading in me? Like, there's one thing you would say to me, Beth, you really need to go do this or go think about this. What is
Mm,
it? I'm scared too.
don't worry, don't be
I'm
scared.
kidding.
The word that's coming to me is pleasure.
Interesting.
Is there a way for you to infuse more pleasure into your day?
Play.
Yeah.
This is about my inner child. This is
Mm,
about the 5-year-old me. Yes.
partly, but it's also feeling like it's partly about your inner woman, like your inner
Mm.
goddess to some
Mhm.
extent. I don't know if you're someone who can live up here a little bit, but it feels like this invitation to just allow yourself a little more pleasure, whatever that looks like, whether it's savoring a cup of tea, or I'm big on textures. Like I love things that feel soft on my skin or tactile things that I can feel, that sort of thing. Just engaging the senses to kind of
Mm.
expand this feeling of aliveness. I don't know if that resonates with you, but
I
that's
will take that on. Absolutely. Yes, I will. Yeah. The idea of, yeah, being playful is like a theme. It's been a theme of my life and a theme of my healing journey. I mean,
mm,
it is part of the inner child, the child who didn't get to play. I still live with that and
mm,
better, but something I can always be working on. So yeah, it's interesting because when I was talking about the gluten issue before, I wrestle with eating cake because I like chocolate cake. I like just plain vanilla cake. That's gluten unless I bake it myself with almond flour or something like that, which maybe I'm going to learn, but I'm not a baker.
flourless chocolate cake.
But yes, I don't like the texture of it as much. I like cake texture. I like
Uh,
it. And so I'm like, I've got to figure that out. But that's that. I think it plays into the play because it's a kid thing, the sweets and the cake and liking that, right? But then there's the adult restrictive in me that's bad for me. And
mm,
where is the place that balances that to where I get the joy, the playfulness of eating a piece of cake and not having to worry about how it's going to impact my system, my gut.
totally.
So maybe that's what all of this is for me today is the lesson in figuring out how to keep some balance there, which is what I heard this morning too when I was listening to actually the whole idea about fiber has been coming up recently. So I think there is a lesson here for me to go do a little work to pay attention to that. So I will. All right. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I could talk to you for another hour about this, and we might have to do a part 2 on this so we can delve in a little bit deeper. But I really am one of my missions with my show and on this podcast is to bring on guests who offer alternative healing modalities that get us out of the traditional and the norm because there's so much power in the alternatives. And each of us needs to find our own unique path. And so I would say to anybody listening or watching this, if you got gut trouble, go see Dr. Selvi. Please connect with her because it might be the key to unlocking your overall health, right? And an integral part to a healing journey that you might need. So please connect with Dr. Selvi. And on that note, where can they find you?
Yeah, I would just add one little statement on to that, and that is,
Please.
truth is that I believe to be true, and that I know to be true, is that your
Mm.
body holds the wisdom.
I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Beth Jones Healing Mentor. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work to help other survivors to heal, please visit me on the web at empoweredsurvivors.com.